My friends, let's talk about something that most of us carry quietly: broken relationships. Not just romantic ones, friendships, family. Connections we thought would last, and now there's just silence, tension, or pain today. I'm going to walk you through 5 powerful prayers, or if you prefer, intentions that can shift everything. So many of us go into conversations, apologies, or even reconciliations hoping the other person will change. We want them to say the right thing. We want them to understand how they hurt us. We want them to realize what they lost. But rarely do we stop to ask, do I even see myself clearly in all this? That's what makes prayer such a powerful tool, not because it changes others, but because it gives us a mirror to see ourselves, sometimes for the first time in a long time. And when you sit down with yourself and ask for the ability to see your own part clearly, it does something different to your brain and your heart. You stop replaying the story of the argument or the betrayal with yourself as the victim or the hero. Instead, you start noticing where your actions, your silence, your fears, or your patterns may have contributed to the dynamic. And that awareness is the seed of transformation. Here's what often gets overlooked. You can't change what you don't see. If you keep telling yourself that everything was their fault, that you did nothing wrong, that you were just reacting to them, then you stay stuck in a powerless position. But when you have the humility and emotional courage to ask, what was my contribution to this outcome? You take your power back. Not blame, not shame, just responsibility. This kind of self-inquiry doesn't mean you excuse harmful behavior from the other person. It doesn't mean their actions didn't hurt you. What it does mean is that you stop outsourcing your healing to someone who may not be ready, willing, or able to give it. You make the shift from needing closure from them to finding clarity within yourself. And that clarity is everything. You'll realize you tolerated things that went against your values. Sometimes you'll realize you were operating from old wounds, trying to prove your worth, trying to be chosen, trying to not be abandoned. Other times you'll realize you were emotionally absent, or that you didn't speak up when it mattered most. Maybe you expected them to read your mind. Maybe you reacted instead of responded. Whatever it is, once you see it, you own it. And when you own it, you can change it, not just for that relationship, but for every future relationship you ever enter. That's why this first prayer, this intention, is the most important. It doesn't fix everything instantly, but it positions you for real healing. Because now you're not asking for things outside of your control to shift. You're working on the one thing you do have influence over: yourself. What truth about myself am I finally ready to see? That's not just a prayer. That's the beginning of real change. When a relationship breaks down, our instinct is often to focus on what the other person did wrong. We want to analyze their behavior, pick apart their words, and rehash the moments where they hurt us, misunderstood us, or pulled away. It's natural. We're wired to protect ourselves from pain. But what we don't always realize is that staying stuck in the cycle of blame creates a kind of emotional paralysis. You keep spinning in circles, waiting for the other person to make it right, while your own healing is put on hold. This is where the concept of prayer as a practice of responsibility becomes transformative. It's not about asking the universe or some higher power to change the other person. It's about asking to see where you've been holding on to the illusion of control, where you've been trying to manipulate the outcome, protect your pride, or bend someone else's will to match your own. When you shift from blame to accountability, everything begins to change, not because the relationship is magically fixed, but because you start moving from reaction to reflection. Taking responsibility doesn't mean you take on all the blame. It means you take ownership of your emotional patterns, your responses, your decisions. Did you avoid expressing how you truly felt because you feared rejection? Did you expect the other person to meet your needs without ever really communicating them? Were you chasing closeness but withholding vulnerability? These are hard questions, but they're the kind that create breakthroughs. Often in broken relationships, both people are acting from a place of fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of being abandoned, fear of getting hurt. The problem is, when fear takes the wheel, control becomes the strategy. You try to shape how things go by doing more, saying less, holding back, pushing harder. Whatever your survival strategy is, here's the truth: Control is the enemy of connection. When you're focused on managing the outcome, you lose sight of the relationship itself. You stop showing up authentically and instead start performing, defending, or withdrawing. And this is why a prayer to release control is so powerful. It's not weak, it's incredibly strong, because it takes strength to trust that you don't need to micromanage love to be worthy of it. It takes courage to let go of the need to force clarity, to demand resolution, or to rush healing. Control might feel safe in the moment, but over time it erodes trust, both in the relationship and within yourself. When you step back and say, I release the need to control this person, this outcome, this timeline, you begin to move in a more grounded, open-hearted way. You give space for the other person to meet you willingly rather than trying to pull them toward you. And if they don't, then at least you know you showed up with integrity and clarity, not fear and desperation. Real connection only happens when people feel free to be honest, free to be seen, free to grow. Control suffocates that freedom. Responsibility, on the other hand, empowers it. When you take responsibility for your own healing, you stop waiting on someone else to give you peace. You create it from within. So if you're in a place where things feel broken, where the connection feels out of your hands, ask yourself this: what am I trying to control that I actually need to release? That's not giving up, that's waking up. And from that space of release and responsibility, you're no longer chasing love, you're becoming the kind of person who attracts it naturally. Forgiveness is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot, especially when relationships fall apart. People will tell you need to forgive or just let it go, but anyone who's ever been deeply hurt knows that forgiveness is far more complex than it sounds. It's not a single decision or a one-time act. It's a process, a practice, and often it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, not because you're weak, but because you're human. When a relationship breaks, something inside us breaks too. Maybe it's our trust, maybe it's our sense of safety, maybe it's the image we had of what the relationship was supposed to be. And in that space of pain, our first instinct is often to protect ourselves with anger, resentment, or emotional distance. Those responses make sense. They feel safer than vulnerability. But if left unresolved, they become walls that block not only the other person out, but ourselves too. And this is why forgiveness becomes essential, not for them, but for you. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened. It's not pretending it didn't hurt, and it certainly doesn't mean inviting someone back into your life without boundaries. It's about choosing over and over again to stop carrying the weight of that pain like a badge of honor or a shield of protection. Because what you carry, you live inside. And if you're carrying anger, betrayal, bitterness, you will see the world through that lens, and your relationships will reflect that back to you. This is why prayer becomes such a powerful tool here. Not the kind of prayer that demands change in the other person, but a quiet, internal request. Help me release what no longer serves me. Help me stop rehearsing the hurt and start reclaiming my peace. That's the beginning of real forgiveness. Not because you're excusing the behavior, but because you're choosing not to be defined by it. What people often get wrong about forgiveness is that they think it's a performance, something you do to show you've moved on. But real forgiveness can exist silently, without an announcement. It's the feeling of no longer being triggered every time their name comes up. It's being able to remember what happened without it hijacking your mood. It's reclaiming your emotional power and choosing peace over pain. The person you're forgiving is still in your life. Other times, they're not. Sometimes they never apologize. Sometimes they don't think they did anything wrong. None of that has to stop you from forgiving. Because again, it's not about them. Forgiveness is an internal decision to stop reliving the wound over and over in your mind. It's saying, I can acknowledge what happened, learn from it, protect myself differently next time, and still let go of the resentment that's been tying me to the past. And maybe the hardest part, forgiving yourself. for not knowing better, for staying too long, for walking away too soon, for acting out of fear or silence or pride. We are often quicker to show compassion to others than we are to ourselves. But until you can forgive yourself, you'll keep punishing yourself emotionally for a version of you that was just trying to survive. If you're struggling with a broken relationship and carrying resentment, disappointment, or shame, consider this. Forgiveness isn't something you offer when you feel like it. It's something you choose when you realize you deserve freedom more than you deserve to be right. When you're convenient, agreeable, or emotionally available on their terms, that's not love. That's control disguised as connection. When you pray or set the intention to love without losing yourself, you're committing to a new kind of standard, not just for how others treat you, but for how you treat yourself. It's a promise that you will no longer betray your own heart to keep someone else comfortable. It's an agreement that your feelings matter, your voice deserves space, and your truth has a right to be heard. This doesn't mean you become hard, guarded, or distant. In fact, it's the opposite. When you're rooted in self-respect, you can love more freely because your love is no longer tangled up in fear or desperation. You don't have to chase, perform, or manipulate. You simply show up, honest, grounded, and whole. And in doing so, you invite the kind of love that sees you, accepts you, and grows with you. So if you're trying to repair a relationship or simply recover from one, ask yourself, where did I lose pieces of myself in trying to hold this together? And then one by one, begin the gentle process of reclaiming them. Not out of bitterness, but out of deep, unwavering love for who you are and who you're becoming. Because the goal isn't just to find love, it's to find love that includes you, all of you. Letting go is one of the hardest emotional experiences we face in life. Not just because it hurts, but because it often comes with so much confusion. You can love someone deeply and still know that being with them isn't right for you anymore. You can want to fix what's broken and still feel completely lost about how to do it. And sometimes the most honest, powerful thing you can do for your healing is not to hold on tighter, but to let go with grace. We tend to think of letting go as a kind of failure, as if choosing to step away means we didn't try hard enough, care enough, fight hard enough for the relationship. But the truth is, letting go doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean you stopped loving. It doesn't mean you were weak. In fact, it often means the opposite. It takes incredible strength to walk away from something you once prayed would last forever. It takes wisdom to realize when holding on is doing more harm than good. The reason letting go is so painful is because it challenges the story we told ourselves, the story of what this relationship was supposed to become, the story of who we were going to be with this person. And when that story begins to unravel, we feel grief, not just for the person, but for the version of life we imagined with them. That grief is real. It deserves to be felt, but it doesn't have to trap you. This is where the idea of a graceful release becomes essential, because letting go doesn't mean cutting someone out with coldness or bitterness. It means choosing to release them with love, even if there's hurt. It means saying, I honor what we shared, I accept what it is now, and I trust that moving forward is the most loving thing I can do for both of us. That level of grace doesn't come from ego, it comes from emotional maturity. It's the result of having done the inner work to ask, is this relationship still aligned with the person I'm becoming? And if the answer is no, it's about giving yourself permission to walk away, not with resentment, but with peace. You may never get the apology you wanted. You may never have the full closure you hoped for, but you can still choose to close the chapter with integrity. You can still choose to let go without making them the villain or making yourself the victim. That's the power of a graceful goodbye. It's not about proving anything. It's about protecting your peace. Letting go isn't about ending the relationship entirely. Sometimes it's about letting go of expectations, of the idea that this person needs to change, of the belief that things need to go back to how they used to be. It's about releasing control and allowing life to unfold without gripping it so tightly. And in that space, you give room for something real to emerge, whether that's a new beginning or a peaceful ending. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you're choosing to honor what's real, even when it's hard. And that is one of the most courageous acts of love you can offer to yourself and to the person you're releasing. One of the most overlooked parts of healing a broken relationship isn't what happens between you and the other person. It's what happens after the last argument, after the silence, after the realization that things may never go back to how they were. That's when the real work begins. That's when you have to choose deliberately how you want to rebuild yourself. Because when a relationship breaks, whether it ends or simply changes form, it leaves behind a gap in your time, your identity, your emotional space. And in that space, we often feel lost, unanchored, like we don't know who we are without that person or without the dynamic we were so used to. But that space isn't something to be feared, it's sacred. It's where you get to start again. This is why the final and perhaps most empowering prayer you can offer is a declaration. Help me grow into the version of me who no longer repeats the same patterns. Because patterns are what keep us stuck. They're the subconscious loops we carry into every relationship, the way we seek validation, avoid conflict, shut down when we feel vulnerable, or attach ourselves to people who mirror old wounds. These patterns aren't accidents, they're learned. They come from our earliest experiences of love, connection, rejection, and safety. And unless we consciously bring them into awareness, we'll keep playing them out, no matter who we're with. The end of a relationship, or even the breakdown of one, is a powerful mirror. It shows you what part of you needs attention, not fixing, attention. Maybe it shows you how quickly you silence yourself to avoid conflict, or how easily you take responsibility for someone else's emotions, or how uncomfortable you are receiving love without having to earn it. These moments of reflection are not meant to shame you, they're meant to liberate you. Because once you see a pattern, you can start choosing differently. That's growth. Not becoming perfect, but becoming aware. Not controlling your emotions, but understanding them. Not trying to be better for someone else, but becoming more grounded, more self-connected, more whole for yourself. And from that place, every relationship you create moving forward will look and feel different, but because you have. This doesn't mean healing is linear. Some days you'll feel strong and grounded. Other days you'll miss the relationship so much it aches. You'll have moments where you romanticize the past, where you wonder if it's too late to fix things. That's okay. That's part of it. Growth is not about erasing the past. It's about integrating it, about being able to say, that relationship taught me something valuable, even if it hurt. Just maybe that relationship broke, not because it was meaningless, but because it had already fulfilled its purpose. Maybe it came into your life to awaken something in you, to show you what you needed to heal, what you needed to remember, or what you needed to stop accepting. Not every love story is meant to last forever, but every love story, even the ones that end, can lead you back to yourself if you let it. If you're sitting with the aftermath of something broken, if you're asking, what now? Begin here. Grow, not to get them back, not to prove your worth, but because you deserve to be the kind of person who doesn't have to keep learning the same lesson through pain. That's the real win, not fixing what was broken, but becoming someone who knows how to build something new from a place of awareness, truth, and deep self-respect. If there's one truth that echoes through every part of this journey, it's this. Healing a broken relationship, whether with someone else or with yourself, isn't about quick fixes. It's about deep, intentional shifts. It's about learning to let go of blame and control. It's about softening into forgiveness, standing tall in your self-respect, and having the courage to release what no longer aligns with your growth. These 5 prayers aren't magic words. They're invitations to see yourself more clearly, to take ownership of your patterns, to show up in love without abandoning who you are. And when you do that, when you heal from the inside out, you stop needing someone else to complete your story. You become the author of it. Whether the relationship you're thinking of gets repaired, evolves, or fades away, your healing is still yours. Your peace, your power, your future. That's what you're reclaiming. So if nothing else, let this be your quiet declaration today. I choose growth over chaos. I choose peace over performance. I choose love, but not at the cost of myself. That's how broken relationships begin to transform, not always into what they were, but into what they were meant to teach you. And sometimes that's the greatest gift of all.